Hey Ma, I'm doing a camera review. Cool, right? But honestly, I get hundreds of these emails from companies like this asking if I want to review their gear, and I generally ignore them. But I don't know if you've noticed, it's kinda bone dry out there. Absolutely nothing is coming out. So, Avkans camera, anyone? And this might get a little spicy. We'll see. Now, I will admit the one thing my studio is lacking is cameras, which is one of the reasons I actually decided to take on this review, and especially NDI cameras, of which this is, which is exciting. And this thing isn't short of boasts either. Sony CMOS sensor, which is fine. There's a ton of sensors out there with the Sony name on them. This one lets you get up to 4K 30, but no matter what resolution you shoot at, it is going to be capped at 30 frames per second. Now, there are some interesting effects you can use, like adding text overlays, which is interesting, NDI and SRT for streaming, HDMI and USB-C for connectivity, and PoE or Power over Ethernet if you buy the adapter. And of course, you can record on board with a micro SD card. Now, this thing is actually pretty decent for build. The plastic body is rather expected, and it doesn't really feel cheap either, some decent heft to it. On the bottom, you have the connection point for a tripod or some kind of stand. On the front, you have, of course, the lens. There's a cap and an indicator light to tell you what's going on. Now, on the back, you can see the I/O. You have a power button on top, which you can press and hold to turn the camera on. It does take a decent amount of time to initialize, about 35 seconds in fact. Then you have a USB-C and an HDMI. Then there's a 3.5mm line in for a microphone, and then that SD card slot. Now, there's no other controls on the body, which is fine, as you can do all the things in the app, or at least in theory. Now, this is where things get a touch weird. You see, as I mentioned, there's no physical controls on the body, meaning to control the camera, you need to use an app. Wonderful. That app is called Avkans Live, and it works great when it works. Now, this has been the spottiest working relationship between pieces of gear I've ever seen. Sometimes, as I mentioned, it works great. Turn camera on, app picks it up immediately. Other times it takes forever, and I'm talking like 7 to 10 minutes forever, not to mention the few times it just didn't connect for some reason. And I get it. Sometimes these things can be a bit quirky. So just plug it into your phone and get things up and running, right? Oh wait, it doesn't connect over USB to your phone. However, it does connect over USB to your computer as a webcam. Now, let's say you want to record with this camera. You use it with the phone connected to the app to hit record. And that's not completely truthful. There is another way to do it, but we'll cover that in a bit. But saying that, it's a bit of a janky setup. You toggle record on and off. It's not just a button. Now, using this thing as a camera over HDMI works like a charm, and even NDI as well. I just feel like some of these things are a bit underbaked and perhaps need a bit more time in the oven. Now, I will say they updated Avkans Live just after I was done shooting this video. So what I can say is they have fixed the connection problems that I was having with this camera when trying to connect with Avkans Live and the phone. So hopefully, no more issues there. Next up, the audio setup was a bit weird as well. So I decided to do some test recordings, and I was getting a weird chorus effect. We're recording. Let's put those on. Make sure that I look respectful and proper. So I checked the audio settings, and it was picking up audio from my phone. So like of me talking through my phone. Now, that is actually kind of a cool feature because you can use your phone as kind of a microphone, and I actually love that. But why would it just be the stock setting? It never occurred to me that would even be a thing. Okay, so first, this is the audio going through the camera, the Avkans Go 4K, and this is what it sounds like. Now, this is the audio going through my cell phone. It's using the cell phone as a microphone, and this is what it sounds like with the Avkans Go 4K. Again, this is the Avkans 4K. This is the audio going through the camera. And once again, this is the audio going through the cell phone for the Avkans Go 4K. Which one do you like better? And the video is as you would expect. Now, this isn't snobbery. I love my mirrorless and glass cameras. They are my first choice almost all of the time. But little things like a top-down camera, I love the idea of using this for that. But even if you're like me, remember, not every shot needs to have a ton of depth with all the bokeh. Sometimes a crystal clear shot is needed, and honestly, this thing supplies that. So here's another quirk that I was kind of running into when I was getting to know this thing. Recording onto the SD card in the back isn't able to be triggered inside the app. Now, I went online to look at any and all documentation on the Avkans website, and it says you can, but there isn't anything in the menus on my phone that is saying that. I realized I should actually show you this while we're in the video. This is the ISO recording. This is their video they have online to SD card. And you go in and you click on this settings button, hit setup, and this is what your phone is supposed to look like when you hit setup. Now, I'm just going to show you what my phone looks like when I hit setup. These two things are not the same, just so you know. I don't know what I have to do to be able to get this screen on my phone, but the phone screen I get is way lacking. So what gives? Now, you can just double tap the power button and voila, you're recording. But I didn't know that, and I looked and looked, finally stumbling on that in the manual. But this just seems like an odd little quirk that shouldn't exist. I get that not everyone can be everywhere, and coding is hard. But it seems like this is one of those things that should be a no-brainer. Why can't you record to SD with the button on the phone? But while I was doing up this review, an update came in, and I figured I would give it a fair shake. And well, the updating wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to be. So just so you know, the process, it's simple. You download the file, plug in the camera to a Windows computer, open the file, click the executable. So far, pretty good. Then pick the firmware to update it, and voila. The problem is they don't tell you which one the firmware is. There's several DLLs in there that you can choose. Then they just tell you to go onto the Avkans Live software to check it to see if it's updated. And I do that, and, well, there's no way to see what the firmware is on the camera in Avkans Live, or at least from what I can tell. So I think I updated the firmware on my camera, I guess. So while I'm rallying against a bunch of this stuff on here, I actually really do like the camera. Is it a good bang for your buck? I don't know, I'm not the webcam or streaming camera guru. However, what I do see is something that is quite good. It looks good, and it has some fun features that I can see being quite useful. 3 of these going into a switcher, and you will have a full podcast video setup. And that's cool and actually relatively cheap. And little things like the battery life on this thing being quite good, I find that impressive. Do note, though, that this thing does take a bit to fully charge through. All in all, though, all of the quirks I've come up with here, they can be fixed, and they can be fixed with firmware. I do know that, and that's why I'm giving this a pass. And as a camera attached by HDMI or NDI, this camera is awesome, and it's going to be getting some use in this studio. So if there's anything that can stand up as a testament, it's that. Remember, not everything being reviewed gets put into my workflow. So it's pretty cool. Cheers, guys, and thanks for watching.